Hi, welcome to my channel where we provide an alternative view to the common narrative. Today I'm going to talk about the F16 and the retrofit of the MiG-29 narrative. So if you are interested, please continue watching. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the F16 narrative as well as the retrofit or a modification of the MiG-29. Now, both of these stories have done the rounds now, and every time I read these things, it seems to me like people talk in absolutes. It cannot be done. It's not going to be done, and whatever narrative they try to provide. And unfortunately, I cannot agree with that. As an engineer, I believe a problem is a problem that can be solved. Every problem has a solution. You just have to look long enough, or you have to have enough money, or you have to have enough time, or whatever is required. Or you have to have enough creative thinking, if you want to call it like that. So let's start with the F16. Now, I know the guys have said, I want tanks. Zelensky says, I want tanks, I want tanks, I want tanks. The Germans and Americans have said, no, no, no. I want tanks, I want tanks. And like a typical 4-year-old throwing a tantrum, and finally he got his tanks. Yes, only the German tanks, and only a limited number because well, all the other countries promised the tanks, and but they were the politicians, and when the politicians went to the military people and say, hey, come on, when you're going to deliver the tanks, and the generals and the military told them, but yes, we have tanks, but none of them are working. And now Netherlands and Norway and so on are either not sending them or cannot send them, or because they are still requires rework and maintenance, or they have reduced their numbers. Well, the Americans have said from this, only bullshitted the Germans, typically what they did, and the Germans fell for a trap. And now the Americans are not going to supply that, only maybe next year or so. But anyway, they did get it, and Ukraine did get their tanks. Now, it seems to be the same story. Well, they had the same with the Patriots, and they had the same with this, and any other weapon systems. First it was denied, and then later it was given. And now we have the story about the F-16. No, Americans are not going to send the F-16s. The Ukrainians don't need them. Well, then the question has arisen, why are the Americans training Ukrainian pilots on the F-16 if they're not going to send them? What's the purpose of the training exercise then? I don't understand that. Then maybe you can tell me. But I don't see that point being discussed in any narrative, pro-Russian or pro-Western side. So my assessment, just based on that fact, is that the F-16s are going to come. Well, then the narrative goes on and says, oh, yes, but the F-16 is not a MiG-29. Well, the F-16 was produced in 1979, and I think the MiG-29 more or less in the same region, and I don't know what state the upgrades will be. I don't think the Russians have made a lot of upgrades on their MiGs, but the Americans would have done it. But usually, as it has been going on, the upgraded versions are kept by the Americans, and the older versions are basically, and the older weapon systems are supplied to the Ukrainians. So it doesn't mean that they're going to get the latest and the greatest F-16 with the latest and greatest electronics. So then one has to ask the question is, how long do you really need to train it, and for what purpose? Now, if you want to be an ace fighter pilot, then it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years of constant flying the F-16, and only the F-16, and know the aircraft by heart, and know its limitations, and has pushed the limitations of that aircraft, if you want to be a fighter. But who says the Ukrainians want to use it as a fighter? Because as a fighter, the F16 is not a match against the Russian aircrafts, especially their fighters. And it's also not a match against their air defense systems. So what are they going to be used for? Are they going to fight the Russians? No, they're not going to fight the Russians. And if they don't going to fight the Russians, then they don't need the 5-year worth of training and know the limits of the aircraft. So what are their purpose then? Well, I've discussed the military strategy that was created by Poston, and he specifically mentioned also that the Ukrainian Air Force will never, Ukraine will never achieve air superiority. The Russians will probably do it. He also acknowledged that the Russian aircraft will be superior to the Ukrainian versions. So the only real function that the Ukrainian Air Force can do is to support its troops. And what does that mean? Well, that means bombing runs. That means, how is the Russian doing it at the meantime? All the Ukrainians flying low, hugging the ground, come to a certain point, distance away from their target, lift up their noses, fire their ammunition or their missiles, and then immediately deviate before the air defense systems can pick them up. That is how they work. And that is what the Ukrainians really need. And the F-16 is not only a fighter, it's actually a bomber as well. Well, not a really bomber, but a ground support, taking out ground targets. So what they firstly can do is their first function would be in order to support the Ukrainian infantry and mechanized divisions or brigades or whatever you want to call it. And that means flying low on ground, not engaging in any air dogfights, which in any case is not really a modern type of warcraft. Dogfights are not the main purpose of any aircraft. Not unless the aircraft, the fighters, escort big bombers, strategic bombers, that cannot fight against fighters or enemy aircrafts. But mostly them are, you can look at also what the Russians are doing. They are using mostly the Su-24, 25, which is a bomber. A hardcore bomber. And for that, you don't need 2-3 years of training. What you need to do is you need to understand the targeting electronics in that aircraft and how to target and how to bomb. And that surely you can reach maybe in 6 months' time. And the Ukrainians haven't arrived now. They're already there for some time already in America and other countries. So, in my opinion, the F-16 are going to come. And they will not be employed in terms of dogfights, but in support of aerial infantry positions. And secondly, also for anti-air defense systems, firing arms, missiles, and identifying arms installations and firing the necessary air-to-ground missile systems to destroy the Russian air defense systems. So again, I don't see the big hoo-ha about, are they going to come or not? Yes, they're going to come. Unless the war is finished before that, but that's beside the point. Then we have to look at the MiG-29s now. So the Americans are thinking of modifying the MiG-29s and supplying them with air-to-air missiles. For what purpose, I don't really know. Again, like maybe air defense system. But again, I wouldn't use them for dogfights. I will use them for bombardment, support of infantry, because that is the biggest requirements. That's the biggest lack that the Ukrainian forces have. They have no air defense systems. They have no support for the infantry. So they cannot do that. They need that. They have quantitative shortcomings in terms of artillery. So they need the bombardment, the ground support of the aircrafts. So how do you do it then? But okay, before I even get, so what can MiGs do? So Yes, the talk is that they're going to put AMRAAM onto the mix, but the system works like that you have to fire the missile at your target, and then you have to guide it until that missile is in a certain range via your radar system, and then basically the missile will pick up the target, and from there on it becomes autonomous. But until it reaches that point, you have to guide it. So how would I do it? Well, first you replace the radar systems of the mix with your own version, and then I believe it's not one computer sitting on an American aircraft, it's a module. That means a targeting module will be a separate box with a PC board inside there, and that will be your own screen and everything, and the targeting, and that will be connected to the radar system. And so you basically refit the whole unit. You don't go and patch it in. You place the display, the control units, the radar systems, all one time into the aircraft. That is if you want an air defense dogfight type of scenario. Again, if I would do and retrofit the Americans with the MiG-29s with bombers and so on, what would I do? Again, I will take the whole American version, the electronics, everything, put it right, sensors, GPSs, whatever is required. Those are separate modular stuff you will just put in. If the Americans haven't designed it, and then I don't know how they design stuff. Then it's totally crap. If they cannot separate the units. Because you have to have multiple processors, specialized electronic processing, processor power, but digital signal processing, stuff like that. Those are all specialized chips. You don't build it into a big unit, you build it into smaller units. Because those are the things that are usually upgraded and then basically swapped out. So again, I cannot support this hysteria type of this absolutism of some of the narratives. The question is, what will happen? We are talking about summer offensive of Ukraine. It's again sort of, I'm going to a little bit deviate or expand a little bit on the story. It's like, yes, my two friends actually made the statement yesterday, I heard it, is that Zelensky, the Russians, well, they have the funds to produce and get everything, but Zelensky, they are living from paycheck to paycheck or something like that. And that is true actually, because whatever Zelensky and Ukraine are getting piece-wise, bit-wise type of military support, equipment and so on. And the question is why are the Americans really doing it? Because whatever they supply is not sufficient to launch a counter-offensive. But they want the Ukrainians to first do the counter-offensive and then show them they are worthy of their support. So if they drive the Russians back, then, okay, then they get more weapons. Maybe then they get the F16s. But let's say without the F16s, they can't do the counter-attack effective, successfully. So I don't understand how the Americans really think and work. Oh, there's a lot of things that we don't know. Now, firstly, I also don't believe that the Ukrainian army is totally decimated and they have lost all their hardware. I don't believe that. They have certain units on the front lines, and then they have a lot of units in their reserves, and then they have a lot of equipment on the west side, and they are also protection of Kiev and stuff like that, and borders with Belarus, etc., etc. So don't tell me they have no tanks. They have no armored fighting vehicles. They do have it. Their own stuff. And they're still going to get some of the Polish people and Slovakia or Slovenia or whatever. But they don't have enough. It's like if you want to do a frontal attack, which is apparently their strategy type of thing, then you need 400-500 tanks. You need 300 artillery pieces. You need that stuff to do a proper counterattack. Unless, if you don't have it, then it's like fighting a conflict with your one arm tied behind your back, and then the other people expect you to win. It doesn't work like that. So I don't understand the logic behind all this. This bit piece, part piece type of thing. Yes, I do. But I don't really want to say it. It's a question of you first have to prove yourself. Are you worthy of my support? Or are you going to win? Then I will support you. But those are all ridiculous type of arguments. And then you already lost the battle in any case. So why do it? I'm not sure. But if the war goes on, mark my words, the F16s will come. But the F16s will come after the retrofit of the MiG-29s in Poland and Slovakia and so on. Until they have been used up, then the F16s will come. In any case, today was a little bit short. Hoped you agree with what I'm saying. If you like what you heard, if you haven't done it, subscribe. If you haven't, tell your friend, spread the word, press the notification button, leave a comment, and until next time, cheers.